Okay, we're going to discuss aging. So, towards the end of our long, happy, fulfilled lives as family members is aging, right? And so, I'm going to talk about a few different things in relation to it. But first of all, I'm sorry, that little clip art image, I just, for some reason, I think it's the cutest thing. But okay, let's move on. So, one of the things I want to share with is all of us is where we're at as far as a society in relation to aging. And so, this is a population pyramid, and you can see it's from 1950. And look at the bottom of that population pyramid. That's the amount of people that were ages 0 to 4 years old in 1950. And so, if you think historically what that phenomenon was called, right, it was the baby boom right after World War II. And so, that enormous amount of people. Here is a population pyramid from 2016, and you can see where that like 0 to 4 gigantic group is right there in the like 60 to 70 age range. And you can see differences in this population pyramid. You can see that it's starting to taper a little bit towards the bottom. You can see at the very top in 1950, where's the very top? It's 85 plus, and what's 2016, right? So if you look at the amount of people 85 and over, as opposed to the 85 plus in 1950, you can see that we have an aging population. Countries watch this. They watch their population closely because if they do not have a strong, likely held population pyramid, because you want the bottom, the base, to be the biggest, and you want it to taper off towards the top, because you want that amount of people working and paying into government systems to support aging society members. And so if it ends up being top heavy, social programs in countries can have significant problems, and that has happened in the world. Northern European countries have seen that their population has dwindled slightly, but in an impactful way. And so they've actually, in some cases, governments have stepped in and tried to incentivize families to have more children. Many families are, they're not having children. They're not having two, three, four children. And so kind of incentivizing that if you have, a second child, that maybe you would be able to have family leave that was government paid family leave for the year. Or if you had a third child, that you had, a major tax break, like trying to incentivize families, because they see if their population dwindles, they are in a very precarious place as far as resources and financial resources in a country. Okay, so one of the things I want to talk about in relation to aging is kind of our visual perceptions of aging, right? Namely, like gray hair. So I want you to name a celebrity who has gray hair that is considered really attractive. Okay, I'm guessing here, but it seems like whenever I ask that question, the answer I usually get is George Clooney. It's usually not women. And in fact, I like challenge you to think of who is a person in the public eye, celebrity of some sort, who is a woman who is aging and has gray hair, because there's many women who are celebrities who are aging, and they're aging in miraculously amazing ways. So this idea of like how you feel as if you are allowing the aging process to take place, which it does inevitably, that there's something especially in relation to femininity. Masculinity, you have more of like you can embrace like the vitality of aging a little bit more than you can in femininity. One of the interesting things, though, talking about gray hair, is in the last handful of years, there's been a trend of gray hair, right, with younger women, but it's very, very specific gray hair. It's a very different undertone, whether it's like slightly lilac or kind of platinum, than somebody who's aging their gray hair. And so, but I think it's an interesting way of kind of looking at what is the construct of beauty in relation to age. And so how that is part of it. But I'd really challenge you to think about like aging gracefully and naturally. And we all struggle with it. Depending on your age, it's of course never going to happen to you, except you're going to blink all of a sudden and you'll be like 50. Well, you won't blink and be 50. You can blink a few times. I'm pretty much going to blink and be 50. Like I've only got like years left. And 60 and 70, it goes really fast. I know you're coming to an age right now, no matter where you're at, especially if you're in, your early 20s or things where you realize, oh my gosh, life goes really fast. That's because it does. So, okay, let's talk about different types of age. There's your functional age, and that's defined by what you can do. It's called ADL, activities of daily living. Like, are you able to, bathe and feed yourself and all that kind of stuff, real basic stuff. But then there's IADL, instrumental activities of daily living. Can you drive? Can you balance a checkbook? Things along those lines. So your functional age is defined by what you can do. I mean, think about age. The only age we really pay attention to in the world is our chronological age. I'm 42, I'm 82. I'm 22, whatever it is. But there's also these different kinds of ages. So functional age, I almost pronounced it completely wrong. Psychological age. And so that's how old you feel you are. And so I would be really interested if you went around in your life to ask parents and grandparents or aunts and uncles, how old do they feel they are? Because if I'm in my early 40s, I don't feel it. I mean, I guess sometimes like my knees or something feel it a little bit, thankfully. Not too much yet. But like, kind of feels like intellectual. I don't know. I don't think I feel any different than when I was 25, but that idea of how old you feel you are. And then there's your social age, and that's whether or not you're performing within your age range of social norms. I went back to school and was a student at SAC, excuse me, and at Cal States when I was um, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. So I was a little bit of as a returning student, I was a little bit older than the average age, right? A lot of times, although we have a lot of age diversity, thankfully, which is awesome in community colleges and quite honestly, even at the Cal States. But I was not in the, age range of norms completely for my peers. And so that's something that can make a different experience for you. My grandma, when the story goes, her younger sister lived down the street. And when her younger sister was like, I don't know, 42, 43, she got pregnant. And so this was like 1954 or something. And so my grandma, in her infinite kindness and patience, was said to her sister, "Oh, Helen, you fool at our age." That Helen got herself pregnant. I can't sigh enough at that story. Well, it turns out my grandma, who was 45 years old at that point, also ended up, she was pregnant too at the same time. They had cousins like within a few weeks of each other. And so my grandma at that time, she had a 20-year-old son. So she'd had a son when she was 25, and now she was having another son when she was 45. And so she was completely living outside the age range of social norms by being a parent at that age at that time. Nowadays, a 45-year-old having a child, not exactly as much outside the norm. I was 20 when I had a child. That's kind of outside the norm. So thinking about your social age and where you're at in relation to the social roles that you're performing. Okay, so that's different types of age. Let's talk about different ways of aging. There's the normal way of aging, right? So that you are experiencing kind of the lessening of skills and body abilities and mobility and everything else that is considered normal. But then there's also pathological, which is when your aging process is hurried by things outside of your body that are not part of the natural aging process. These extrinsic factors could be things along the lines of sun exposure, or exposure to pollution, diet and exercise, having a poor diet, having a lot of stressors and things. So that's not a natural part of aging, and that can expedite the way that you age. There's optimal, which is like just the freakish people that you're like, how are you possibly 86? You seem like you're 52, like that kind of thing, where it's just unbelievable how well they're aging. But then there's also successful. And so now you're actively using those extrinsic factors to counteract the aging process, whether it's making sure you get a lot of sleep and that you are lessening your stress and you have a healthy diet, you're getting a lot of exercise and you're putting on your sunscreen and all of these things to try to counteract and delay the aging process and be successful at aging. So, okay, last thing to cover are a couple of sociological theories of aging. So first is disengagement theory. And disengagement theory is when a person has removed themselves in many ways from society, and also society we don't value. We do not value elders in our capitalistic American society in a lot of ways. We're respectful, right? We're kind, but we don't maximize their vitality. People kind of drift away into more and more. Um, Kind of, I can't think of the word. I'm not lonely, but just kind of isolated. That's the word. Isolated existences, right? My neighbor across the street, Mrs. Marufo, she is 85 now. And, she's home most days, all day. She does go out and stuff, doctor's offices and errands and things, but she spends a lot of time by herself. She actually has a master's degree in sociology and she has the best sense of humor ever. And so that type of thing, like, do people really take the time to reach out? And certainly her family does, and she has some family friends. She has somebody that comes over and helps her at home. But she has such a vibrant personality and would be like so capable of like contributing so much to our society. But we kind of have this disengagement theory where we kind of act like people of advancing age are not as viable members of our society, where that's not the truth at all. So then there's also continuity theory, and that's to age successfully, people have to maintain their identity and continue to find things that help them be a vibrant member of society. My my grandma came from a big family. I think there were 8 kids, and so her youngest brother, Uncle Ted, his wife Aunt Lorraine, talked about retirement to me many years ago now, and I thought it was so exceptionally poignant. And really, it's amazing how one little conversation can really reshape the way that you look at the world. We work towards these careers and we have them for so many years, and we then kind of dangle like this idea of retirement, like a carrot, the proverbial carrot, kind of out there. One day I won't have to wake up so early, I won't have these responsibilities, I won't have. Well, she talked about how, like, lonely, quite honestly, retirement was, that, they were more and more and more withdrawn from society. And so this idea of, especially with longer lifespans as they are at this point, thankfully, in our lives, to really think about, like, what do you want your second act to be? What do you want the entire existence of your life to be? How do you want to stay an active contributor to the world around you and to have that life and energy and new possibilities throughout every single age? I think that that is something really, really important, and an important discussion to be, having with everyone, but really to be having with yourself, again in this class, time and time again. I have hoped that by covering these various aspects of families, this has given you an opportunity to be reflective and think about, what do you want for yourself? What are your plans for yourself? What are the ways that you can be logical for yourself? And so as we kind of start to wrap all of this up, I think this is yet one more opportunity to really think through, what do you want to create in your life? We have an inordinate amount of opportunity, an amazing amount of opportunity to create the life that we want in so many ways. And so, how do you want to begin to shape that for yourself?